Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Austin Reaves is ejected. Luka Dončić struggles with turnovers, and the Lakers lose at home to Charlotte. An ugly, ugly night at LA Live. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free, never, ever, ever, ever behind paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 32,000 subscribers are all hanging out and wondering how the Lakers managed to hold my beer, the loss they had to Utah before the All-Star break. They come out of the break, Andy, and lose again, this time to Charlotte, one of the worst teams in the NBA, and certainly one of the worst road teams in the NBA. 100-97 is the final score. Austin Reaves gets ejected. Two LeBron James three-point attempts to tie the game in the final possession. Both come up short. Do want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So very much in this game, Andy, to dislike. I don't want to say I gave him a pass for Wednesday, but I didn't freak out about it last week. This one was very annoying and very bad.
I'm not going to freak out over this loss.
Not freaking out, but still very annoyed.
It was, to me, it wasn't even so much annoying, although I wouldn't blame anybody for framing it that way, as it was just very weird. It was a very weird game, very disjointed, very out of sync. One of the things I know I want to talk about over the course of the show is it felt like LeBron and Luka, even acknowledging they have been teammates for 3 total games and have barely spent any time with Luka healthy at all, but it felt like they might as well have been playing 2 separate games because they were involved so little together in terms of synergy.
I would agree.
But things really fell off the rails. They fell really off the rails for the Lakers late in the third quarter, coinciding pretty directly with Austin Reaves' ejection, which we'll get into. But even in the first quarter that the Lakers finished up 28-21, they turned the ball over 9 times in that first quarter. 5 of them belonged to Luka. And looking back on it, those empty possessions really mattered, because had the Lakers scored on just like a third of them, they get enough points to win this game. So it all ends up coming back to bite the Lakers in the ass one way or the other.
Yeah, and I look at this as they gave up 20 points off turnovers. So, which, given how often they turn the ball over, isn't a terrible figure. But again, to your point, Andy, if you either just don't turn the ball over in those situations to give up the points, or, how about this? Score. You're in a different situation. Lakers only got to the line 12 times. They Rui Hachimura missed 2 critical free throws down the stretch. This was a game. You can point to if it was 63 points the Lakers gave up in the second half, whatever. This was a game the Lakers lost on offense. And it's like, I mean, to me, 100% a game that I don't care how many second half points you give up. In the NBA in 2025, when the other team scores 100 points, you should win. And like, that's just like, you should win when you hold the other team to 100 points. And you look at the Lakers and what they did offensively, and the numbers are just hideous. They shot 41% overall, 29% from 3 on 51 attempts. I mentioned the 12 free throws. Those 2 numbers, by the way, are directly related to each other. Too many threes, not enough activity going towards the basket, too many turnovers. And this is the result. I mean, this was a terrible offensive game. As JJ Redick said afterwards, they played, I think he estimated 39 to 44 minutes of really bad offense.
I mean, to reframe what you were saying about how in 2025, if you hold a team to 100 points, you should win. The flip side of it is the Lakers in the second half scored 49 points. And in, say, 1925, if you score 49 points and a half, you are leaving yourself susceptible for a loss. You mentioned the amount of threes that they took, 51, making only 15 of them. And it meant that they actually shot 22 of 39 inside the arc.
Mm-hmm.
And this is against a team, Charlotte does not have much in the way of rim protection. In the period where we thought Mark Williams was going to be a Laker, we did note that protecting the lane is not his strong suit as a defender, as a player. And, he demonstrated that when he was on the wrong end of an absolute monster dunk by LeBron, who caught Mark Williams, his ex-teammate's body on that play.
Technically true.
But what I do think also it demonstrates is being 22 of 39 from inside the arc, but 15 of 51. It's not just that you missed a lot of threes. It's the shot selection on the threes were often terrible. A lot of step back threes from Luka in particular. If you're going to take that many, you need to make more. Austin Reaves, who was frankly having a pretty bad game before he got ejected, which might have in part led to
I think it was a large part. Absolutely. Yeah.
Austin was, before getting ejected, 2 of 7 from behind the arc. I think they did not do a very good job looking to manufacture the shots that they missed. And I think that is in part the reason why they missed so many of those shots is a lot of them weren't that good of ones in the first place.
Standing around and all that kind of stuff. And I think your point that you were making, we'll get into a lot of the individual performances here and some of the big picture stuff. Look, Lakers play again tonight in, we're recording obviously on Thursday. For the audio version of this appear on Friday. Like, Lakers are in Portland.
Wednesday into Thursday.
On Wednesday and Thursday. Sorry, Thursday into Friday. And Lakers are in Portland on Thursday night. So this, you talk about Luka and LeBron seeming like they played sort of separate games. And I think intellectually, nobody should be surprised by this. The last two really big pairings, look at these superstar pairings the Lakers put together. LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Very easy to figure out how that works, offensively, the flow of that, whatever, who has the ball, where does the ball go, all that kind of stuff. That's not hard. Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, same thing. It's the same dynamic. Easy to know who's got the ball where, how that's going to flow, the positions are. There's much more overlap in what LeBron and Luka do. And while the potential, I think, for great stuff is certainly there, it also means a longer feeling out process. It's much more similar to when LeBron and Wade got together for the first time, and Miami went 9-8 before they went on like a 20-2 run or something like that. Now, the Lakers don't have necessarily that kind of time now that they're down to 29 games left in the season. But bigger picture, when you figure out what Luka and LeBron are doing, it's like it makes a lot of sense that this could take a minute to figure out. And that's before you get into rust with Luka. Clearly that was there. The shot was definitely off. And then in the next segment, I want to get into some of the structural stuff that you saw. You mentioned Austin being chucked out of the game and what went downhill afterwards. I think, you say like they're related 100%, because it gets to some of the other things the Lakers are missing when Reeves isn't there. So anyway, it's a horrible night for the Lakers. When we get back, we'll start getting into some of these individual performances and a weakness that, while we've been focused on the center position, Maybe something else the Lakers have to think about. We'll get to it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the game. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. And I love features like the live betting feature because it keeps every moment in the game exciting, whether you are backing your team for a late game rally or picking your favorite player that you just believe is going to hit that clutch three. I hope it was not a Laker tonight. You never feel like you're going to miss your chance. Plus, the app is really easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win the first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Quick reminder, Locked On Lakers is a newsletter, Andy. It's not just a podcast. It's not just a YouTube show. It's also a newsletter. And you go to lockedondaily.com, you click there, you then click on Locked On Lakers, and you have this show and a lot of great NBA analysis from a lot around the Locked On NBA channel delivered to you every single day, no matter where on earth you are, whether that's Los Angeles or Slovenia. You can get the newsletter delivered.
Zdravo, everybody, when you open up your email.
I don't know how to say newsletter in Slovenian, but perhaps somebody can leave it in the chat. That's something you can do to stay connected to the program. Austin Reaves was not having a good night. I think he was absolutely frustrated at the lack of whistles. And he was in fact fouled on the play. You could see Yusuf Nurkic got his arm, pulled the arm away. I guess I could see it was close enough to the ball. I guess I could see why the ref missed it. But Reaves was correct. And he certainly earned the first technical. He said after the game, he got it. He understood, you're yelling at it. You walk up to the guy, you make and you're yelling. The second one, he was walking away, but he did turn his head and he didn't stop talking.
Yeah.
And did it look like a quick trigger? Sure. Should the referee probably have let it go? Maybe. I don't know. But the point is, Reaves got to be smarter than that. That is 100% on AR. If you're going to keep talking, and you probably shouldn't, you can't look back at the ref. And when the whistle blew, Reaves didn't look surprised. He walked right off the court.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think Austin knew that he messed up. First of all, according to English to Slovenian translation via Google, newsletter is glasilo. So look for everybody's Zdravo. Look for your glasilos if you subscribe to Locked On.
I don't know if that's correct or not, but it's really the thought that counts. I think it's the effort that we're putting.
No, I've decided it's glasilo. So okay. Zdravo, everybody. Look for your glasilos when you subscribe to LockedOnDaily.com. Secondly, it's not just that Austin looked back while he was talking. He was extremely demonstrative on the original tech. Yeah. The thing that got him teed up in the first place was very over the top. So that's the point where you have to realize you cannot talk.
Just
walk away. You cannot talk at all. I mean, you damn sure better make sure that if you're going to keep talking, it's got to be very calm, very okay, my bad body language. Let me talk. If
right.
you're
Say
going
what you
to
want,
do
but if I'm watching on TV, it looks like I'm being super polite, even if I'm mother effing the referee, right down there. Yeah.
And things went really downhill after that ejection. To put it in perspective, 3:17 left in the third quarter. When Austin was ejected, the Lakers were up 65-57. They had been up 13 in that third quarter. Charlotte then went on an 18-1 run over about 6 minutes that was eventually broken up at least a bit by a Rui 3. But The game absolutely went sideways afterwards. I mean, recognized before, Austin was not playing particularly well in this game to begin with, but you lose a lot of what you were looking to do from a rotational and an execution standpoint, just not having Austin there, even if he's not playing well.
And I'll tell you what I think. It was noticeable during the game, but I think it became even more so with Reaves out. One thing, obviously, the Lakers center is an issue. This was not the best Jackson Hayes game. He's fine. But he was limited at sort of, at 18 minutes on the floor. I think they felt like there were some matchup issues, made it harder to play. Alex Len was okay. It was fine. But the Lakers, they're short at center. Like, this is not a mystery. This is not something that is sneaking up on anyone. The other skill set that the Lakers don't necessarily have, even with Luka, and Luka will get better at this as he plays himself, hopefully back into better health, and just gets more comfortable and his legs back and stuff, is they just don't have a lot of off the ball sort of dribble penetration. Like, part of the reason they took 51 threes is because as a group, it's just kind of hard, hard for them to constantly be breaking. They don't have, like, LaMelo, for example. You could see just, the handles, the quickness, whatever, gets, has a little bit easier to get in the lane. LeBron, capable sometimes of using his size. Luka can put it, but they don't have a ton of that. I think they're going to have to do a better job of, and they no longer have Anthony Davis as a big, tall person that creates some of those opportunities to get in the paint. So JJ and the staff are going to have to do a much better job, particularly with Luka and LeBron together, of finding ways to engineer ball movement, player movement, and opportunities to put the ball on the floor to get into the paint off the dribble.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying in terms of the idea that the Lakers lack dribble penetration. I think that is something that they were hoping to gain more of with Luka, and I agree with you. It's something that Luka, once he is fully back up to game shape, is something that'll bring more to with the Lakers. I don't necessarily buy that that's the reason for this many threes, just because the Lakers have been lacking it for the last few years and haven't put up threes at this level.
I'm not saying it's the only reason. I'm saying I think it contributes to it. And remember, before in games, you always, it was much easier to generate paint touches and paint looks when you have Anthony Davis there. And so it's like,
I just think tonight,
when you take him away, you don't have as much of that in the, in the high post and the low post, or whatever. And so you have to generate a lot of that in different ways. And Austin, while it's not necessarily super conventional looking all the time, it's one of their better guys putting the ball on the floor and getting, through that initial layer of defense and into the paint. I don't necessarily think this is going to be a massive long-term problem. The Lakers are still not super duper athletic, but again, we kind of already knew that. I just think it was kind of like symbolic, or whatever the right word is, of part of the reason they were shooting so many threes tonight. It was in part because I think it reflects that skill set deficit that they have as a group.
Okay, this is where the evening has taken us in the chat. George Fair, is D'Lo better than Luka? All right, relax. Relax. I mean, you will not find two members of the LA media who have been more consistent, bigger proponents of D'Angelo Russell than the two hosts of this show. We have spent, if you count both tenures D'Lo had in LA, because we covered both of them, we were much more on the focus on what D'Lo does well instead of obsessing over the things he doesn't. Settle down, George.
He's not better than Luka Dončić.
No.
And it's
get
really
it.
Not
tonight was upsetting. Settle down.
Yeah, it's not really close. LeBron was plus 13, I believe. Plus 12. LeBron was minus. No, LeBron was minus 4. Jackson Hayes was plus 4. Luka was plus 13.
Right.
And Jackson Hayes was plus 12, but they lost the LeBron minutes pretty bad. And they lost the non-Luka minutes pretty bad. And
well,
so
that was a direct correlation, by the way. The run when Austin got ran, that actually coincided with, I believe, LeBron out there and Luka sitting.
Yeah. So like, Luka still had 8 assists. He had 11 turnovers. 5 of 18 is not good. But the 6 turnovers, 8. I'm sorry, I did that wrong. 8 assists, 11 rebounds, 6 turnovers, but a lot of that was front loaded. And he will get better. I'm not worried about Luka, and I'm not even necessarily worried about the long-term prospects of the team. I don't think Wednesday's game changes that. I do think it is a reminder that the arc of getting to where you want to be is potentially bumpier, less archy, less smooth than fans might want. And they have they have got some skill set deficits, like an attacking, thrashing offensive wing would be helpful here. Somebody pointed out in the chat, that's what Max Christie's doing in Dallas right now.
Well, let's get into some of the things that we're looking for against Portland and moving forward coming up next. One thing that jumped out at me, Brian, tonight, I said before, Luka and LeBron seemed on very different pages in this game. And it wouldn't have jumped out at me as much tonight or been more perplexing if they hadn't seemed, more relatively synergized in the first 2 games they played together. Like they're in the first, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 minutes of the game max, you had a sequence where LeBron had a hit ahead to Luka, and then Luka had a hit ahead to LeBron. And then for the remaining 44 minutes, I can barely even in my mind's eye remember them being on the court together, much less anything they really did. Like there's nothing that stands out, good or bad, just period, where it even feels like you remember them working off each other. And I recognize in both Utah games, there was not a ton of it between Luka's minutes restrictions and how lopsided both games became. And there's also JJ's had a substitution pattern in the first quarter where both LeBron and Luka have been sitting at the same time. So there's a couple minutes they wouldn't be on the court together, which, side note, I find a little weird.
Well, I mean, the first couple of games they did that was minutes limit, but I think that's an interesting question. I don't want to, we don't necessarily, although with the game tonight as well, like we might as well just mention it now. There are 2 ways of looking at this. Like, you want Luka and LeBron, you're one of the 2 on the floor at all times. Okay, well, if you do that, that's a totally legitimate way to handle this, by the way. I have no problem with it. But if you do it that way, you limit the number of minutes that they play together because, you're trying to, you don't want each one of those guys playing 41 minutes a night. So the other way to do it is you try to buy a few minutes with neither of them on the court, maximize the amount of time they're on the floor together, and use Reaves as kind of a bridge with that second unit. And the other guys, and see what you can do. And I think that could work as well. Some of it gets to, in the end, how quickly and how effective can you make the Luka LeBron combination? And part of, I think, where that starts with is figuring out ways to get them interacting a little bit more on the floor. I think you're right.
I mean, again, I want to make sure it's understood. The time where it's just Austin in the first half, we're talking about 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Like, it's not like JJ's keeping both LeBron and Luka off the floor for like a 4 or 5 minute stretch, which would be frankly insane.
Right. And also, but I just think as a strategy, I actually think it's defensible because you are then maximizing the amount of time they play together.
It can be, but especially early on, I would rather see them get the most amount of minutes together possible. And then if you have to tweak the rotation a little bit from there, fine. But they need again, we're only talking about a couple minutes per half, if at all. I've really noticed it more in the first half than the second. And then things got thrown completely off the rails tonight because Austin ended up getting ejected. But even after Austin got ejected, you would think that that would be a time where it could feel like the two of them might synergize more, work more in tandem, if because you have no other choice. Like like it would almost force it to start happening. And we are very, very early in this incarnation of the Lakers. So I think there is a danger to read too much into anything, frankly, even positive, much negative. It is just something that jumped out at me tonight. Just how in like almost separate spheres the two of them seemed while they were on the court together.
And there are going to be times when it looks like, go back to the Wade LeBron thing, like, everybody, the criticism everybody had, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. And that sort of like weird kind of deference, nobody's quite sure how we're doing this sort of thing. And sometimes it kind of will look like that, like just because sometimes LeBron's going to have the ball in his hand, sometimes Luka. And I think the one thing early, especially the Lakers, you certainly could not accuse the Lakers of early in this game was being too deferential to trying to get Luka the ball. Let Luka, like, somebody had an open shot, they took it. There were a couple of 2-3 possessions where Luka didn't have the ball at all. He still has a ton of gravity. He still talks about, like, if somebody has an open shot, they were taking it. They weren't force feeding Luka. And the one thing that I would really be cautious against is the easiest thing to do in this situation would be to actually try to maximize the amount of time that LeBron and Luka play separately so that you can have each one of them kind of do more of what they're used to, more of the game. That, I think, is the easiest natural sort of temptation, whatever. And it's also the one that I would resist until you just can't anymore. Because the potential thing that makes it special is what they could do playing together.
Yeah.
And so you just got to work through the pains of that and get there and figure it out. I don't ultimately know what that looks like, but I mean, you certainly can't 3 games in give up and be like, well, just give them as much time separately as possible. Like, no, figure it out.
No, the only reason you would look to stagger LeBron and Luka to any real discernible degree would be because, say, Austin is hurt and you need to stagger the minutes between them so you always have at least one plus ball handler / playmaker. Like, but that's one of those necessity,
right.
Necessity being the mother of invention, that sort of thing. Like you are forced to do that. Otherwise, what you really are forced to do right now is work through the bumps, like figure out what is it that makes LeBron and Luka, I don't want to say difficult to pair because I think they can figure it out, but like, what are the things that quite literally need to be figured out? Okay, work through it. And it sucks to have to use regular season games that matter as a live dress rehearsal of sorts, but that's what happens when you do a midseason trade.
Right.
Like,
and it's what I think everybody was hoping. We got it in that first Utah game. I think what everybody is hoping is that they could sort of go through the growing pains, and because the teams they're playing were so bad, like, you still win the games anyway. And they almost got away with it for 2 of the 3 games, which would have been a decent enough result. Instead, they lost 2 of the 3, and you get bit for that. Like, these games are going to hurt potentially in April when you look up at the standings. You're like, oh God, I wish they'd managed to beat the Jazz and Hornets going into and coming out of the All-Star break.
You know what's a crazy thought? Like, and I want to make it clear, I am not giving my opinion of who won the trade overall globally, but small sample size. So far, Max Christie's been the best player in this trade.
Yes,
which is
no
it's crazy just because, I mean, you and I think especially I have been a big proponent of Max. Like, I've been a big proponent of him since his rookie year. I wanted him to play more. And you know, I think there are a lot of Dallas fans who likely just didn't really realize how good Max can be just because they haven't seen him play a lot. And this is the first season he really played consistently at all. And on balance, I think Luka is going to emerge a better player than Max Christie. But it is, so far, Max Christie has been the most impactful player in this trade, which is, if nothing else, man, good for him for making good on his opportunity in both spots this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, certainly in short, again, small sample size, he's played the best. And then, you know, there's just a lot, like you see, like Christie was somebody who, when he moved in the lineup, it took a second, but then you could see like everybody kind of adjusted and moved, you know, moved pieces into the right spots. Defensively, and again, the Lakers wasn't great in the second half, but they did only give up 100 points in this game. They should have won. You know, you saw what Charlotte was doing, where they would, you know, hunt Luka and then, you know, run it, you know, bring it, force a double, then try to swing the ball
Austin
around
a lot before he got tossed.
Right. They were, you know, and that's, you know, the Lakers will see over the course of 4 or 5 or 6 games exactly how teams are attacking them. And they will have to make some adjustments, and that'll happen. Like, all of this stuff is going to look very different in 10 games. The problem is the Lakers are just going into a stretch where they're playing a ton of really good teams. Like, it's a hard schedule. This is why I've been harping on how important it is the Lakers gave themselves at least a little bit of, if you were doing this while you were scrambling to stay in the play-in, the vibes would be very different.
Yeah, in the second half in particular, the zone defense that Charlotte was throwing out was, and we've seen this during the season, this is not anything new, but it becomes more magnified.
Terrible team against zones all season long.
But it becomes even more magnified when you don't have Austin, just because, like you said before, you lose one of your better guys when it comes to penetrating a zone. And then in particular, on a night where the Lakers are badly struggling to hit threes and you're down one of your better penetrators, you are going to find yourself very flummoxed by a zone. And this is also, too, one of those nights where you miss AD as just a potential focal point where if you can get the ball inside, it can wreck everything Charlotte's trying to do with a zone, or whoever's trying to do.
He did have 40-something points last time they played. So, all right. So an ugly loss for the Lakers, a tough night for Austin Reaves, a rough night shooting the ball, certainly from Luka. He did play 33 minutes, which is a Lakers high. That number is just going to keep rising, hopefully, as he continues to get a little more. He did a little grimace, I think it was the second half, that I think is going to worry everybody a little bit. But
also, for what it's worth, too, because there had been some question about LeBron playing tonight. His availability had been questionable heading into the game. Obviously, did end up playing. I don't think in the grand scheme of things, LeBron played fine. I mean, and it's crazy that at 40, 26, 7, 11 is.
He was certainly I thought he was pretty good. I mean, he was certainly the best of the Lakers tonight.
Oh, absolutely. I just mean it wasn't like a vintage LeBron game. I don't mean to be critical of his game.
No,
I'm just saying
it wasn't
like
LeBron game.
No, but I mean, it wasn't even vintage LeBron, I think, for this season.
I know what you mean.
But the point I was really going to get at is LeBron did not look like he was laboring at all. And that's a really good thing.
And whether he plays in Portland, we will see. No expectation that Luka won't, but with all of these guys, we're just going to see who ends up taking the floor.
Doesn't help that they lost tonight.
Doesn't help, and it's if you win the game, you have a little more flexibility to sit some guys against the Blazers. Portland was as good as any team in the NBA going into the break, so this is no easy game for the Lakers up north. Locked On Lakers on YouTube. So we can go hang out with over 32,000 subscribers who are all hoping for a better effort tonight than against the Hornets on Wednesday. Remember, sign up for the newsletter at lockedondaily.com. Check out the postcast with Dave Palais. We'll see everyone after the game in Portland.